if you're wondering, this is essentially what would have happened if Angel did not sell the bag. What's up, guys? I'm Hunter, and here we are to do what if Angel actually managed to erase 15-finger Maguna from existence within chapter 213 of Jujutsu Kaisen. So, you may be wondering, wait a minute, what? What are you talking about, Pencil Man? And that's what I'm here to tell you. What's up, guys? I'm Pencil here. Fun fact, have it on me, and I keep it on me at all times. Another fun fact, Angel had it on them, and kept it on him at all times, but unfortunately, Angel was not the one in control. The real one in control was Hana Kurusu, and Hana Kurusu sold, fumbled, failed, whichever adjective you want to use, they messed up in letting Maguna live. And now, notably, it is entirely possible that the plot breaks if Hana does not sell the bag. But considering that Hana had one job at the time of the narrative, and that one job was to get rid of Maguna, the monstrous beast that was born of the fusion between Megami Fushiguro and Sukuna Ryomen. I think we're more than liable to actually give her a dub and not just have her sell drastically, because that's what it was. Like, no lie, obviously I 100% understand. If I'm looking at Angel from a meta-narrative level, looking from above the narrative rather than immersing myself in it, I see why Gege made Hana fumble. I see why Gege nerfed Hana out of the fight. I see all of that good stuff. And I see exactly why Maguna needs to exist. But here on That Guy with the Pencil, we like to mess with things. And that's why we're going to make it so that Hana does not fumble. Now, the main fumble happens in 213. It is simple as Hana falling for Maguna's trap and, you know, getting that warm, loving embrace from the man she loves. But of course, it's not the man she loves. It's the curse she should fear. And we're going to flip the script on that. So instead of Angel telling Hana directly that, hey, yo, it don't matter that that's Megami, he's gonna have to Megu see something else because we gotta get rid of the disgrace one. He's too dangerous. He's too demonic. He's too evil. Yeah, she's gonna be like smart despite the intensity of the situation. Be like, hey, Hana, remember how I mentioned that there's a high chance, or at least a chance, that using Jacob's ladder in my existence erasure or technique erasure technique will not actually execute the embodied vessel? Considering he quite literally just became Maguna seemingly 10 seconds ago, I think if we use our technique, all we'll do is extinguish Maguna from your beloved's body. So let's work together on this, Hana, and make sure every last bit of him is vaporized. But I could hurt Megami. It may hurt him now, but guess what's going to hurt a whole lot more? Him being possessed by the disgraced one, also known as the Fallen. He will cook your man from the inside out, and it will be scrumdiddlyumptious. I can't let him cook my man! And boom. She just drops it, and like keeps dropping it too. Notably, I'm not exactly sure what ended up happening. Like, how did she even hear Maguna? Maguna, like in the midst of pain and agony, Hana starts crying a little bit, and suddenly I guess that was enough of a let up for Maguna to be like, wait, Hana, I remember her. Please come here. Let me give you a hug with my sticky fingers. Like, I guess that's how that worked. But we're gonna have Hana actually be smart in this scenario. So she does just let Jacob's ladder rock. Now, this is where an immediate divergence in the timeline happens. Obviously, not just the fact that Hana doesn't fumble, but also the fact that there is literally like a bioptic path. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I've been wrong on Megami based with this before, but I do believe there's a chance that Megami actually could survive. Mainly because Maguna is actually so recently fresh inside of Megami. Every time I say it, it sounds wrong, but it's not inaccurate, right? Like, Sukuna did hop up inside of Megami, and then like he's sticking in there too, but he ain't that sticking yet. Like, you know, like for Gorilla Glue, like it dries quickly, but it doesn't dry that quickly. Like, you can touch Gorilla Glue and then like remove your hand from the Gorilla Glue. So like it's kind of like that. Maguna's up in there, you know, he's setting his apartment up, but unfortunately he hasn't exactly signed a lease just yet, and thusly he could be ripped out and leave the apartment in some sort of reasonable state. There may be a little bit of mess in there, things may be blown apart, burnt a little bit, but there's the happier timeline where, guess what? Megami gets to live. Hallelujah. There's also the darker timeline. Megami perishes. I mean, Sukuna ingrained pretty quickly. Like, the marks wasted no time in appearing. And Megami's soul was omega sunk, like super sunk. Remember, that's the whole reason Sukuna was even able to take over the body. Megami and Itadori both are fully capable of being cages for Sukuna. It's just that upon the reveal of Yorozu, Megami's soul was like, alright, I'm out. And then it dipped out. And unfortunately, that led to the Maguna situation. But hopefully, let's just say that since the soul sunk down a little bit, the Heavenly Light only hits Sukuna, and Sukuna gets wiped from Megami's body. Or, there's a third interesting route. Maguna gets suppressed, but I think that can't happen. Like I was talking about this with a friend, and someone was like, well, Maguna, I mean, he could still exist. It's just that Sukuna would get suppressed inside of Megami, where Sukuna would swap out with Megami so the pain wouldn't hurt so much. I think if he could do that, he would have done that to try and bait Hana easier, but he specifically stayed in control. So I think ultimately Megami's soul's kind of cooked at that point, and thusly Sukuna's getting cooked by Hana's divine light. But of course, there are two paths to follow: the Megami End path and the Megami Alive path. Now, one of these paths is bright yet dark, and one of these paths is bright and bright. So for the positive half, let's just stay nice and happy. Considering, we're giving Hana a dub that she never got, let's stay positive and keep giving Hana more dubs. Megami manages to survive. Sukuna was not actually that deeply rooted within Megami. The cursed roots were digging in there, but they weren't digging in that deep, and thusly Megami gets to live. He is a bit shell-shocked though, and all he can see is the rainbow. Like, every single made color is now available to Megami in his retinas because he actually got hit with the light of the heavens, and thusly he's a little bit cooked. Obviously, he's still in like complete mental and emotional shambles, considering he pretty much lost everything. His sensei's still in the box. His best friend is basically, well, I don't really know about anymore, but he probably wouldn't realize that at this moment his best friend's likely still sentenced to a, and obviously he himself just got possessed by the King of Curses, and even if he just got the King of Curses ripped out of him, it didn't look like a very painless experience, let's just say. Yeah, Maguna was in a rough spot, and without any of Sukuna's ability to use RCT, yeah, Megami, he's gonna be looking a little bit crispy. Like, he may actually look like a Jogo victim after all is said and done. So sure, Megami is alive, but he's alive in the same way that Megami is technically alive at the end of 235 of JJK. Oh, he's breathing, but he's pretty worse for wear. And thusly, I could see that scenario happening at the end of our new 213, where Hana does not fall for the okie-doke. And with that being the case, a few couple things happen. Obviously, the biggest thing, 15 Fingers of Sukuna is gone. Snapped out of existence. It's like Thanos himself came in and said, more than half this time, let's go with 75%. Boom! And suddenly dropped 15 Fingers of Sukuna straight out of existence. That's a pretty big deal. You know what I'm talking about? And another very big deal that comes from this: Megami is still around, so we don't have to worry about Big Papa Maharaga coming in and causing trouble for anyone down the road, because legitimately it'd be impossible. Like, once again, Sukuna's gone, and Megami ain't mastering Maharaga and fighting Gojo anytime soon, so everything's good on that front. Another major thing: Hana, and by proxy Angel, are still combat relevant. They can actually still do things. They aren't... How heavy is the human arm? Like 30, 40 pounds? Is that too much? Is that too much? Maybe. Then again, I have big legs. I'm not sure. But essentially, Hana's like, what, 5'2"? Like, a solid extra 35 pounds is still kept on Hana. Like, she still has her arm, and that means she's still, for all intents and purposes, combat viable. That's a very big change from the current narrative right now, where Hana has been reduced to her original plot purpose. Like, don't get me wrong, I see the vision. I know the whole reason Hana was introduced was to free Gojo, and thusly she had to fumble. But still, once again, alternate timeline, Hana's still alive. She's still vibing, and she's still fully capable of being used in combat. Another very big change. Then, another well, I guess this isn't necessarily too massive because this happens regardless. Liberated Yuji. It's still a thing, presumably. I don't think he would notice. Maybe. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't awaken. I'm not sure. Liberated Yuji may or may not happen. Presumably it does happen. I do believe it sort of is a low-key kind of Kurama situation where a lot of Yuji's excess curse energy was being used to hold back Sukuna forming that cage function in a similar vein to how a lot of Naruto's chakra within early Shippuden was actually being used to suppress the Nine Tails, and that's why Naruto, despite seemingly having only 4 times the amount of Kakashi's chakra. Why did I say it like that? Kakashi's chakra, he actually had like 100 times, but a bunch of it was being used to suppress the Nine Tails. I figured the same thing happened with Yuji and Sukuna. A bunch of his latent cursed energy, since he comes from a pretty powerful guy, it seems like a lot of that was just simply unlocked by Sukuna leading him. That's why I call him Liberated Yuji. So Liberated Yuji would still happen. Another thing, Takaba and Maki just show up. Now they don't actually have to worry about dealing with the embodiment of all evil sitting on the roof. They can just run up and be like, yo, I just saw a big old bird on the roof. And I had to dodge lightning. Takaba seemingly took no damage. What's happening? Like, obviously, we wouldn't have to worry about any sort of Maguna situation anymore because Maguna doesn't exist. It's fantastic. So everyone essentially leaves the battlefield mostly unharmed. Of course, Yuji still has a massive hole in his gut. Well, it's not a hole. He's still in one piece. But he does... The pinky's gone. I don't think he's ever getting that back. But with that being the case, overall, a pretty win-win scenario. There's nothing that could go wrong with it. Let's talk about another divergence in the timeline. The question is, do you think Ryomen and Kenjaku get there fast enough? Because, allow me to double check this right now. I do declare. Oh, you're not going to load, are you? You really doing me like this? Right here? Right now? Alright. But I do declare that they were close. They were pretty close by the time that the Maguna versus Liberated Yuji fight really starts to get down. However, you could very much argue that they can't escape the colony in time. You could argue that with the erasure of Sukuna being a massive thing that reaches probably throughout the entire Culling games, like, then again, no. You can't, I mean, everyone in the colony would know that, something massive was just erased. Like, they would feel it, like, obviously, because we know Sukuna has a presence to him. Like, simply entering the Sendai colony had Ryu and Earl both, 2 people who are relative to the special grade unit of Kotsu, being like, oh, it's the king of curses. So obviously him being deleted, being moved over to the trash bin and deleted would probably cause a massive effect, but considering no one even responds to Maguna at first, it seems like maybe they'd be fine, but the biggest issue is if Ryomen and Kenjaku show up. Now, notably, I think Kenjaku wouldn't actually show his face here. And the main reason I say that is because Angel's still there and is actually combat ready. And the reason I say that is because Angel's like inarguably one of the worst counters to Kenjaku in a head-to-head fight. Because, like, guess what Kenjaku is? Guess what his entire curse technique is? The brain hopping thing. If that gets shut off, Kenjaku goes from Kenjaku to Kenjaku. I'm not going to slam my head against the desk. Here, let me do this. Kenjaku. Boom. Yeah. Kenjaku's cooked if he tries to run the ones with Angel, because he literally exists by the continuation of a technique. However, you could argue maybe he'd be fine because he's gone through technique shutdown before. But even with that being the case, curse spirit manipulation versus existence erasure from the heavenly light, still not a very good matchup for Kenjaku. However, Ryomen, probably a problem, mainly because I believe, if you were to ask me personally, the fastest, most speedy individual of their group is, in fact, Awakened Maki. You can see this in the original timeline, where Maki is the one leading the battle against Maguna, and even then, Maguna is still kind of keeping the lead, and Yuji needs to chase behind. I think that Angel's likely slower than 15... I'm about to say 15-finger Maki. I think Angel's slower than Liberated Maki. I think Angel's slower than Liberated Yuji. And I think all of them may end up getting tagged by Ryomen's Ice Blast. Because notably, remember, a lot of people try to chalk it up to Maki being third party, but you can go reread it. Go back to chapter 215. Maki, Sukuna, and Itadori land. They all go back to neutral. They all sense the massive amounts of cursed energy / slaughtering intent come for Ryomen. Kenjaku is nowhere to be found. But Sukuna, Itadori, and Maki all look Ryomen dead in the face. And Ryomen's like, and suddenly blast them all with ice. And Awakened Maki does actually manage to get restrained from that. Meaning, she couldn't dodge it. Neither can liberate Yuji, two of the fastest characters we've ever seen, and thusly it's entirely likely that if Ume shows up on the clock, if she shows up on time, or they show up on time, things may get tragic. Things may get tragic immediately. The only hope they would have in that scenario is that Angel flies up and is activating Jacob's Ladder immediately. Or you could argue that maybe Jacob's Ladder isn't their only negation thing. Maybe it's that slight orb that they have, and then you would get Angel versus Ume. I think Ume just has the massive speed advantage because Angel pretty much has no speed feats, but the Holy Light should be way too fast for Ume to actually deal with, especially considering Angel can just whoop, straight into the air as quickly as possible. And thusly, I think everything will be alright. Even if Ume manages to show up and Kenjaku plays it safe realistically and does not engage at that moment, then I think they'll all escape. We would probably get a different battle. We'd probably actually get an actual fight between the Jujutsu crew and Ume. And a big thing that could happen, once again, another divergence in the timeline, Megami is still likely soul shattered. Like, bro was already fallen to despair. Sukuna possessed him, then he just got hit by Angel's Light. He could be a little bit, and if he's a little, then he would probably end up getting got. Not by like perishing, but no, like, I think Ume figured out Sukuna's plan, and I think that Kenjaku definitely knew Sukuna's plan. So maybe Kenjaku would send like one cursed spirit to go grab Megami. But even then, I feel like that's very, very unlikely. Once again, since we're staying on the purely happy timeline, I will bring up that it's a possibility that could happen. I may touch on it in a little bit. But the next major thing that comes, let's say Ume and Kenjaku play it safe. They see that Angel's still fully viable, and Angel's able to shut down their curse techniques, and they have to deal with Left, Right, Good Night, Yuji Itadori, and the awakened Maki, and they're both like, well, I smell Takaba. We're not dealing with Takaba right now. And they all leave. A certain someone gets played a certain song because they're getting out of that box. Because the big thing is, right? There's no reason not to. In Angel's mind, they just defeated the Fallen. The Fallen is cooked. Because why would they assume that 20 fingers were spread about anywhere? I think that's something that is post their time period that they may not know about. And considering the fact that they didn't erase Sukuna in the past with their ability, it's likely that they never could in the past. And thusly they thought, oh, well, managed to erase him. We're all good. Yeah, but where's this guy you want me to get out of this box? I can do that for you. And then it's time to release Satoru Gojo. However, before we get to that, there's one more sort of lingering plot point, but I think they would end up releasing Gojo first, even in spite of this. Yeah, Yorozu's still alive. But ironically enough, it doesn't actually matter that much. And the reason I say that is because Ume and Kenjaku both acknowledge that, like, I mean, Yorozu was like a Sukuna fangirl. She's not going to really do anything too active. And thusly, I highly doubt that Yorozu would randomly leave Sendai. I feel like she did set up camp in Sendai for a reason. Neither Ryu nor Earl bothered her. And thusly, I could very easily see Yorozu being pretty much entirely untouched until Gojo is freed. And, so, you know how I mentioned that, wow, how do I put this nicely? 15 fingers of Sukuna got erased. Pretty rough scenario for the villain side, I'd say. And on top of that, we also know for an actual factual that unless there's some other thing going on with that final finger that I may or may not be cooking a video on right now, the wrist may be whipping. Regardless of that, there's also a very likely chance that Ume genuinely only had 4 fingers. That Gojo had the last one, maybe Kenny is the lowest one, hey, other characters had the last one's just undiscovered. Ume only had 4 fingers. Now, let me say this wholeheartedly before I get into what will happen in this brightest of bright timelines. I do not know 100,000,000% what the fingers do. I have no clue. Being completely honest with you, I've been asked it a bunch of times, and I've pretty much given a different answer every single time because I have no clue 100% on what they do. However, at least based on Sukuna believing that the mummy, which is just a remnant of his cursed energy, will equivocate to 1 finger, then realistically, The fingers provide cursed energy buffs. And maybe other stuff. But just being with the most simple and laziest interpretation of them, that would make 4-finger Sukuna weaker than 15-finger Sukuna. And 15-finger Sukuna is weaker than 19-finger Sukuna. And 19-finger Sukuna is weaker than 19-finger Sukuna plus the mummy body. See what I'm getting at here? Even if, once again, referencing that earlier darker timeline where Kenjaku actually manages to grab Megami Fushiguro in all the chaos of them fighting a pretty nettled Ryomen, then guess what? At best, he incarnates with 4 fingers. 4 fingers. That's not even a third of what he was at before when he first would have possessed Megami's body in this timeline. And not looking too hot for our boy, because obviously you know who's home. You know exactly who's home. Yeah, daddy's home, all right. Gojo's getting out that darn box, and he is immediately warping straight to Kenjaku. In the brightest timeline, Kenjaku perishes immediately. Indubitably, Kenjaku perishes straight immediately. Like, there would be no hesitation, no delay. Kenjaku would literally get his dome piece straight ripped off by Gojo casually passing by him. You can literally see, I don't know. I'll make a video on it, since apparently this is a video that needs to be made. I've seen it enough in my comment section. I think I do need to make a video on it. But as much faith as I have in Big Papa Jaku, it is very clear by his own admission, by the narrative's admission, by Gojo's admission, by everyone in their mama's admission, Kenny is powerful. Kenny is different. Kenny may even be top 3 in the verse. But the gap between 3 and 2 is massive. And so is the gap between 1 and 2. And thusly, Kenny versus Gojo isn't going to go all too well. Kenny will literally be torn, arguably limb from limb. You can make a pretty solid argument. But then again, you'd probably just say, oh, well, Gojo, he can read the technique. He would go straight for that. And thusly, Geto's body may be spared, but Kenjaku's mind, not all so much. And once again, if Ume's there, they get one tap again. Suppose that, like, Gojo would simply one tap Ume. No problem at all. And then, how do I put this? Okay, to be fair, there is still, once again, the plotline of Yorozu that needs to be wrapped up in this timeline. Presumably, Megami has done some sort of recovery at this point and explains everything to Gojo, or someone explains everything to Gojo about the conditions of the coming games and all the stuff like that. And thusly, it is entirely possible for Gojo to simply pull up on Yorozu and one tapper. Hey, what can I say? He is the strongest for a reason. And thusly, he would absolutely annihilate the rest of the plot from this point out. Because that's all he needs to do. Because essentially, his only competition, and competition's being generous at this point, his only competition was 20-finger Meguna. And at best in this timeline, once again, going with the darker variation of this brightest timeline, at best, Sukuna gets 4 fingers. And here's the thing, right? I mentioned this timeline super duper early on at the start of the video. But let's go way back when. Let's go down the quote-unquote darker timeline where Megami's cooked. Guess what happens? It doesn't matter that Megami's cooked. Because everyone else is going to be cooking. Because Yorozu would still be in full top form. She may be crying over Megami's body a little bit, but that's it. Liberated Yuji would still be liberated Yuji. Awakened Maki would still be awakened Maki. The Chad thick Giga Goddess Takaba would be the Chad thick Giga Goddess Takaba. And I don't see Ryomen or Kenjaku beating all of that. And especially considering Angel would be so sad, you know, the limitations of her technique may be turned off a little bit, and she may go absolutely nuts. Hana may absolutely wipe Sukuna or Ume, not Sukuna, wipe Ume and Kenjaku straight on sight if they try to pull up and pull some nonsense. So thusly, the only real difference in this time is that Megami's I saw the light before me. And boom, he's gone. He's cooked. But I hate to say this, especially considering he's the deuteragonist, but bro's not actually that important. He's actually, unironically, he is more of a threat than he is a No, he's more of a liability than he is an asset in the Lara narrative, as you can see, because the only reason Sukuna's been hanging in this recent fight is because of them 10 shadows. So thusly, no Megami, no Maguna, everything's Akuna. Oh, well, let me not say the rest of that. I'm not sure if I can get copyright stuff for that. But with that being the case, darkest timeline, Megami gets got. Hana still goes down the line and ends up freeing Gojo. Gojo still tags in, teleports to Kenjaku immediately, and just tears it off. However, there could be a way Kenjaku could make this work depending on how quickly he acts. If he uses the multiple points he's gathered, he could very easily bargain with the Kogane and be like, hey, on the off condition that Suguru Geto's body ever happens to get got in the midst of the culling games, start the merger. And the culling games Kogane would be like, oh no, I can't. I need the culling games going forever. If you start the merger, the culling games will end. And then Kenjaku will be like, hey, buddy, look what I have here. This is Tengen. It allows you to run your stupid game. Now you better set up that rule or go. And then that puts the heroes in an interesting spot. Because they know about the merger. They know it's something that's coming. And thusly, if Kenjaku surviving is a way to postpone or prevent the merger, then they may have to work around it. Gojo's overwhelming power would actually get in their way in this sense. Because Gojo could accidentally start the merger the moment he gets freed and teleport straight to Kenjaku. Was like, nothing like fresh air after 1,000 years. Okay, I'll execute you. Like, legitimately, Gojo could accidentally start the rumbling. And by the rumbling, I mean the merger. And by the merger, I mean the roaring. What? Was that references from 3 different mediums? The rumbling, anime/manga. The roaring, Attack on Titan. Why is it? Rumbling, anime, manga, Attack on Titan. I'm blanking immediately. I said Deltarune. Deltarune for the roaring. That's video games, it's anime, manga, and I already forget the third one I said. But regardless, it could get tragic. Absolutely automatic. And once again, even if in this darkest timeline, well, actually, no, ironically enough, in the darkest timeline, it's literally impossible for Sukuna to reincarnate. Literally impossible. With only 4 fingers at their disposal, Ryomen cannot force. I mean, they could force feed Itadori the fingers, but that's not going to do anything. It took 10 of them bad boys for Sukuna to get control over a super crazy, insanely disturbed, beaten down, and fatigued Yuji. Not to talk of a fresh Yuji with more time that's now liberated from Sukuna. So, like, he's got all the good stuff in order to keep Sukuna trapped again if things get a little bit too tragic. And thusly, this is just a brighter timeline overall. Like legitimately, the only faults I could see is that Yorozu pretty much goes unsolved unless someone points them in their general direction. Kenjaku ends up getting cooked the moment Gojo comes out of the box because, you know, Kenjaku's getting cooked the moment Gojo comes out of the box. And Ryomen, unfortunately, they're just a non-factor. Notably, they do have some of the weirdest and craziest feats in the entire verse. We're going to talk about that in their own dedicated Ryomen video. But it's not Gojo crazy. What can I say? It's not Satoru Gojo crazy. So once Satoru gets out that box, it's going wild. It's going down for real. And obviously, this means that, for lack of a better term, how can I put this nicely? Angel will not be reduced to a filthy plot device. She would actually get to do things. And thusly, that would break the plot. There's like no other way I can put it. Unfortunately, Maguna is just a straight requirement for the plot to happen in the way that it has happened, and 4-finger Sukuna just isn't cutting it. He's just not going to. Neither is a hypothetical 4-finger Sukuna plus Mummy cutting it. And that's even if a 4-finger Sukuna could exist. That's if they get their hands on Megami and force feed him everything all over again. And even then, I think that's super duper unlikely. In this timeline, the heroes win solidly. And that's the thing. I wanted to talk about this in its own video, and I still will. But JJK is very it's very tightly packed to the point where you remove one thing, one major, this is a major event. You remove one major event, one fumble from the series, and everything falls apart. Usually for the better, ironically enough. A lot of the villains in JJK get a lot of is it bad to call it? Is it bad or wrong to call it plot armor? Is it bad or wrong to call it plot armor? Maybe. It may be plot armor. Like, a lot of the villains do actually have a decent amount of plot armor to them, to the point where certain things go their way when they realistically shouldn't. And Angel fumbling for Maguna right there is one of the biggest. It's why I wanted to tackle this topic so much, because it is such a recent event. Chapter 213. We're only on chapter 235. We're only 22 chapters out from this event, barely half a year. I know it's more than that because of like the breaks and stuff like that, but still a little over half a year from this event in the manga. Yet if it were to have happened just a slight bit differently, if Hana was just a little bit more determined, if Hana just had a teeny tiny bit more of that dog in her, everything could have worked out. I think regardless though, in the darkest timeline, Megumi does have to get cooked, but considering I think Megumi is physically, mentally, and spiritually cooked right now as he's possessed by Maguna, I think a little bit of light brain damage would have done Megumi some good in this scenario. And ultimately, any of the villains do get fully trivialized by Gojo, as he would have no reason to hold back on any of them. He would not have any type of reasoning. The only reason Gojo did not tear Kenny's head straight from its shoulders the moment he encountered him is because Sukuna was there to intervene. You remove Sukuna, you remove that safety net, and boom! Everything goes left for the villains. And it goes to show you, Gege writes his plots in a very tight way. It's why I think the story is so consistently engaging, because everything is so narrowly built. It's dancing on this razor-thin wire. And it leads to interesting scenarios like this, where simply one character succeeding at their job suddenly creates a happy ending. However, that's what I think. Please what you guys think in the comment section down. Oh, wait. One thing I do want to cover before I go. Culling games. They'll never end. That's the one thing. They would need to figure out a way to make the Culling games end. Because, and not just because Rose is alive, but if Gojo accidentally ends up getting Kenjaku, Culling games don't end. Did I mention that? I think I may have mentioned that. But just in case, Culling games don't end. They'll have to find another way around that. So Gojo doesn't fix the plot entirely. Culling games won't end. But the merger will also not happen. So they have time to figure it out. They just need to start passing around points to everybody. However, that's what I think will happen if Angel doesn't fumble the bag. What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure the notifications so you not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you support for as low as one. Count them one. That one. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. And also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Zach with the Pencil, writing it off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members, Recliner Plays and Red Wolf 4765. I'd like to give a very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Red Wolf 4765, Midnight Gem Lord, Kevin, and Demex LND. I'd like to give a very big thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha and Ida Okami. I'd like to give another very big thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. And a very big thank you to our $25 patron, Ignew.